Remember the 60s, rock and roll was the thing, with music to dance to, and lyrics to sing, dig out them old records.
The first thing I want to mention is how easy it was to get a job. A little bit too easy as far as I was concerned, because I'd left school one day, and the next day my main hobby was going train spotting, sitting at what we call the Iron Bridge at Winwick Sidings. And I remember going off to Winwick Sidings. We couldn't afford fizzy drinks and packed lunches in them days, so we used to take a bottle of water and probably 2 jam sandwiches, and that would last us the day. And I remember walking there through the fields and looking up and seeing a skylark singing away in the sky, and I just sort of sat in the grass listening to this, bewitched by the sound of this little skylark in the sky. And then on the way back from spotting at Winwick Quay, I came back and my dad was sat down having his chips for his tea, and he said, "Where have you been today, Geoff?" And I said, "Oh, I've been train spotting at Winwick Sidings. I'm going to go back again tomorrow." He says, "Oh, no, you're not." I said, "What do you mean? No, you're not." I said, "It's summer holidays now. We've got 6 weeks off school." He says, "No, you finished school yesterday." He says, "You better go and find a job. If you want to continue living here, you need to find a job." So he wrote all these names down of Thames Board and all the steel factories and all the places where I could get an apprenticeship. And I made a list out, and the next morning I trudged off down Winwick Road, heading for the first location, which I think was Walker's Brewery or something. And I happened to pass Eddie O'Brien's motorbike shop, and I was fascinated by this little CB92 125 Honda Bentley, which was in the window. And I went in to look at it, and the owner was stood at the counter. And he said, "Can I help you, son?" I said, "Oh, what a fantastic little bike." And without any prompting, I said, "I'd like to be a motorbike mechanic. Can I have a job?" And he says, "Well, what do you know about motorbikes?" I said, "Well, nothing really. I remember fixing a puncture on my dad's Vespa." Oh, he said, "You sound like a bright sort of lad." He said, "Come in 9 o'clock tomorrow morning and let's see how you go on." And I couldn't believe it. I was looking forward to 6 weeks off school, and he ended up with a job the next day. So you could literally just walk in and get a job off the street like that in the 60s.
We motorbacking. We're going down the Queen's Highway like a streak of lightning. We motorbacking. I did have a motorbike. I bought it. I bought it off my father. It was a BSA Bantam. But I sold it to my younger brother before I even passed my tests on it, so I never took my test. I used to drive it with L plates on and take a friend of mine who works in Warrington Market to Liverpool. But when I sold the BSA Bantam to my brother, he wrapped it around a gas lamp. But we still had it in the shed for years. I wish I had it now because it wasn't much wrong with it.
I actually did a count once and got to about 105. So it's at least 100 and probably about 110 bikes that I had throughout the period 1963 to 2010. The first one I bought was when I was working at Eddie O'Brien's motorbike shop, which was a 49cc Kerry Capitano 2-stroke moped stroke motorbike. The most I've ever owned at one particular time was 22. And whenever I say to people, "How did you end up with 22 bikes?" I tell them the truth, which is every time I used to come home with another bike, my wife would say, "You fetch another bike home here and I'm going to leave you." And I remember getting up to 22 and I thought, well, she's still not gone. This is costing me a fortune. So I actually started selling them then, thinking, well, she's never going to go. I better start selling some and get some money back. All my mates had motorbikes, and we just used to meet up impromptu at somebody's house and say, "Do you fancy going for a run?" And we'd take off to Rail or Blackpool, or whoever was in the front decided to go. Nobody knew where we were going, but we always ended up somewhere. One of my best friends was Peter O'Day, and he had a special bike which was called a Tribzer, which was half a Triumph and half a BSA. And nobody could afford cars in those days. We didn't want cars anyway. We were quite happy with our bikes. But in 1967, before I started racing. I thought I was racing, but on the streets, and I actually got stopped for speeding 4 times in 12 months. And after I got banned, he used to take me to Thames Board back to work when we were working on shifts. And I've got very special memories of that bike. Sadly, Pete died in 2009, and it was really Pete's passing away that was the catalyst for me to actually get my act together and try and do an exhibition to celebrate what it was like in Warrington during the 1960s. And Pete always used to carry a particular picture in his wallet, which was a picture that my friend Alan Maguire took in 1968 at the Isle of Man TT when they were getting off the boat in Douglas. He carried that picture with him all the time. Now, when I found out about this picture, I approached a few of his old friends, and we decided that we'd pay and have a special picture commissioned to commemorate the life of Pete. And that picture is up in the exhibition at the moment, and there's a little story explaining all about it. Warrington itself was buzzing with energy in those days. The guys used to come in from all the surrounding areas, Earlstown, Wigan, Lee, Runcorn, to visit the cafe bars, the cinemas.
We had the Ritz, the Odeon, the Empire.
The Palace.
12 of them, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, there'd be more than 12, but yeah, 12 sounds a reasonable
Well, when
number.
I was trying to think, the ones that I remember, apart from the ABC, the Ritz, the Odeon, the Palace, the Empire, the Premier at Latchford, the Queen's,
The
near us, where I live.
Yeah, Queen's,
And
up Overford Lane.
They were the only ones I can remember ever
Regent.
being open. Which was the Regent?
It's in Scotland Road, the Regent.
Oh, was that? Never went there.
Yeah, that's the first time I saw one up called Boris Karloff as Frankenstein.
You do have a look of him and all.
I know, I've took the nut and bolt out the neck. It's a bit obvious.
Yeah, there was, actually, there was a good few. There was the Odeon, the Ritz, Cameo. Oh, I can't remember them all, but there was a lot. Quite a good few. Some were only small cinemas, but some were, there's 3 main big ones anyway.
There was actually 12 cinemas, 13 slightly before the 60s, but in the 60s there was 12 cinemas in Warrington, so there's a huge choice of what you could do at night. There was the Fab Hall dance floor, there was the dance floor at the Warrington Baths, where, believe it or not, they used to leave the water in the pool, cover it with boards, and everyone would dance up and down.
Actually, one of the places was the Baths, and that was the municipal baths. And I've often wondered if any other town in the country used to do that to their municipal baths. They
Cover the floor up.
They put a false floor over the main bath.
I know the lads used to jump and get it springing.
And once, the heavy rock and roll came along, the place would bounce, this floor would bounce, and I've often wondered why it never went through.
I know.
Because it was just an empty bath underneath the floor.
There's no water underneath.
No,
Well, I presume so.
Well, they left the water in. I suspect they might have left the water in for a safety point of view in case it did go through. Well, a lot of people have drowned, right? But yeah, I mean, all the top liners played there. The Beatles, Jerry, and the big
didn't
three.
Play,
No, they didn't do the.
Now, the Beatles appeared twice at Warrington. They appeared at the Parr Hall and a place called the Towers Labour Club at Busey. In those days, whenever groups appeared anywhere, they never fetched their own PAs with them. They relied on the house itself having a PA, or if the house never had a PA, well, it was up to the promoter to provide one. What I used to do every Friday afternoon, now don't ask me how, I used to go into Liverpool to a shop there called Brian Kelly's and hire a PA system, small PA system. We weren't massive like these days, only small. And took it back for the night. Now, you always got your amplifier, 2 speakers, and a microphone stand. So that was that. Now, that was all it required, except for that night. Because, obviously, John Lennon wanted a mic, Paul McCartney wanted a mic, and George Harrison dubbed on any of those 2 mics, you see. only one mic stand. I thought they had a microphone stand at the Bell Hall, so in the afternoon when I got back, well, not 4 o'clock it was, I went to Dawson's music place and I bought a microphone, a Reslow microphone, that made do with the second one, which we used during the night, and we didn't have a microphone stand, you see. So, God, flippy deck. What to use for a microphone? So, luckily, they had a brush there, a sweeping brush. So, 5 minutes before the Beatles appeared on stage at the Bell Hall, there's me with this hammer and 2 nails banging this brush in the floor on the stage of the Bell Hall and sellotaping the microphone on. And during the course of the night, John Lennon and Paul McCartney used that. So that was quite an experience. And I've still got that microphone that John Lennon and Paul McCartney used as well. I've still got it at home. It was a bit of a memento for me.
Well, that was at the Bell Hall. Pete Rigby booked him, the DJ, and again, I'm afraid to say, I had a date with a beautiful blonde girl. So, although I was invited to go, I didn't go. But I did see him later on at the Queen's Hall in Widnes. And again, I was invited backstage by one of the promoters to meet him. But I had my own group, a group who'd recorded, played a song I wrote called Precious Moment. So I said, no, I want to see my own group because they were on next, the Renegades. So I missed meeting the Beatles. But I just turned around to this bloke and I said, it's a revolution. And a little while later, he recorded an album called Revolution after me. I'd never heard music so loud before, you know, because they had the best amplifiers at the time and speakers.
You never had fallbacks. You know, you couldn't hear what you were singing.
Oh, no.
Because your speakers
You didn't have
front.
monitor speakers.
There was no monitors.
No. You just had to guess it sounded right.
You just hoped that the balance was right.
Yeah.
I think with a lot of groups, a lot of the guitarists said, "Well, I'm turning mine up. I want to do my bit." And so if they played it, the other one said, "I'll turn mine up."
Yeah.
So I don't know, as you say, to get a balance was sheer guesswork, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So there were some horrible noises.
And 1 or 2 mishaps.
Yeah.
I know our bass player he went to the front of the stage to lift the microphone stand up. It was a pump microphone stand. And as soon as he touched the mic stand, he ended up at the back of the stage on his back. Got a shock through causing a circuit through the strings on his bass guitar and the mic stand. And it wasn't earthed properly. He lived, unfortunately.
There was more things going for younger people, more dances.
Dancing, well, there was a dance that came that we don't see much of now, and I really enjoyed it as well. It came originally from the Cabin Club, and it was called the Cabin Stomp, and it was a special dance it was. The jive, of course, people started to dance in separate bowls then. It used to be a situation, came from the formal quickstep and dance days of a man, a lad and a girl dancing together. Well, then the situation changed from that to really just the 2 girls dancing together then. And then, well, when the 2 girls were dancing on the floor, it always gave an opportunity for 2 lads.
The 60s were the happiest days of my life. I just left school in 1963 and was about to try and find a job.
It was a small town, it was a market town, and I just think it was a lovely, compact little town. And again, at that time, most people knew everybody. You could go in town on a Saturday afternoon, meet up with your mates, where you going tonight.
At the end of the night, we'd end up at the Holgie Wagon. And the Holgie Wagon was a hot dog stand on Bank Street, but it was famous for the size of the large hoagie, which was in fact a complete French stick with 6 hot dogs, half an onion and half a bottle of tomato sauce. And over the years I tried and tried, but never actually managed to eat a complete one.
I knew the owner one time, I forgot his name now, he was a Welshman, the original owner. think we just called him Taffy.
We used to go in the Lion or in the place called the Dive. And I think, was that called the Lamb? And it's down below where Boots is now. And well, Boots was in Bridge Street.
Yeah.
It's a pub that you went downstairs to, a little bar.
And you used to meet people at Burton's Clock.
And then we used
Burton's
to go...
had a clock there. Or Eustace's clock.
Eustace's clock.
Yeah.
And then we used to go in the Lion Hotel then, upstairs and the dance. In their ballroom. That was a proper ballroom, isn't it?
I counted once outside the Holgie Wagon. All the groups used to go there after they'd finished the shows. They'd come from Liverpool, Manchester, you know, they'd all been coming back from all areas of the Northwest. And I once counted 40 group fans there, and sometimes more than that. And you'd get the Yanks there, or the Americans, and then we'd get a few fights.
There was very little crime, very little drugs or serious incidents like that going on.
If there was usually stopped very quick, and they didn't use knives and bottles like. Although the Teddy Boys, which was like more late 50s and early 60s, they used to have knives sometimes and knuckle dusters. Well, you didn't see many, because there was no alcohol.
All these venues, you know, except the Parr Hall and the Baths Hall, were all non-alcoholic. They're all Coke, Chris, which is quite remarkable, isn't it? That you won't get that today. So the Bell Hall, every Friday night we always used to have a bobby there. Co-op Hall, the same with the Co-op, same with the Parr Hall, same with all these halls. Just a little bit of story. They used to have to hire police. I think it was about £1.70 a night to hire a bobby. There was a well-known policeman, Bobby Dooley, and well, they got away with things that they could never get away with today. I mean, misbehave yourselves. Well, they just take you around the back and give you a pat around the ear hole and send you on your way, like give you a good talking to. But you're highly respected, the police were in those days, really respected.
But one night, I was there at this stem cell, and used to get a lot of Teddy Boys, you see. Some would have knives in the socks. And they attacked this fella. Oh, a policeman he was. And he knocked him to the ground, and he started kicking him all over his body. And I rushed in, and I jumped over him. I stood across him with my legs and pointed to them all, get out. Leave him alone. Of course, they all backed off then, and Longford led again. Our reputation stood up. And I think it would have really, it was in the Guardian, what upset me, it was in the Guardian in the weekend, or the next week. It said the policeman was injured, and not one of the public went to his help. And that disgusted me, that, because I'd stood right over his body.
Another fascinating thing was the fact that we had two air bases in Warrington at the time. One was at Stretton, which I think was a Navy air base, and I remember going to an air show there, probably in the late 50s or early 60s. And more recently, there was the Burton Wood base. And Burton Wood base, when we were train spotting at Winnick Quay, the bombers and the American Sabre fighters would be landing and taking off all the time. So there was always plenty to look at, and it was really a fascinating time to be involved with.
I think Warrington was lucky in two respects. The first one is we had the biggest American air base in Europe, just outside Warrington. So that meant the place was slew of Yanks. That, from a musical point of view, that helped the situation. And we were right in the middle between Manchester and Liverpool. And Liverpool started the next phase of the pop music world, the Beatles and what have you. And we were the first town they'd hit if they came out of Liverpool, really. Wigan, St Helens, Warrington, Widnes. But I think we were the biggest. We had the best venues of the local towns, didn't we, in those days?
We probably
for
had
dancing.
We probably had as many groups as well.
Yeah.
Warrington had over 40 bands. Pete Rigby reckons it was 80 in Warrington alone. That's why the Holgie Wagon was always
I know some groups tried to write their own stuff and did write their own
Well,
stuff
they
and
did.
did record it.
But, no.
I mean, we had a few groups that did make records.
Yeah,
I mean, there was the Five Nights.
The Five Nights.
But they were, they had all metamorphosized, hadn't they, from other groups?
Yeah, it did really.
The Five Nights, they became the Times.
Yeah,
Fairy Tale made a couple of records.
yeah.
And then, of course, we had Truly Smith,
Oh, I see
Josie
that,
Taylor from Dalham, lovely girl, and she made several actually singles.
Yeah. On their
But
own
we
new-
didn't have any hit makers
No.
in our midst, did we?
I'd started managing my own little group. So the first one was, I called them the Little People. And then they became the Fairy Tale, and Rigby managed them then. And he made 2 records. They didn't hit, but were on the telly, and they're quite big in Japan now, a cult band. Although there's 2 members of the group dead now. But then I managed another group called the Templars, and another group called the Tatters, and the Vogue. The Rivals was one of my favourites. They were rocking rivals, and then they became the Rivals. They were a good, brilliant band. But we never made it to the top, but we enjoyed ourselves. One of my songs recorded by a Manchester group called Blinkers. They were from Oldham, Manchester area. And they were called the Blinkers after Georgie Best's nightclub in Manchester, Blinkers. And they recorded this song called Original Sin. And they were booked for Top of the Pops. But one of the producers objected to one of the lyrics in the song. And they didn't make the Top of the Pops. So if they had done, they would have sold a lot more records than it did. I wrote it as a humorous blues song. Well, I wasn't there, but it was recorded. A friend of mine who was best man at my wedding, and he was also a musician in groups I used to manage, like the Little People, Mally Rabbit. He actually was in another studio trying to make some records. And he knew him because this group played at the Carlton and another line. And so he said, I've got a song for you. So he more or less sang it to him, the words, and he had them on a piece of paper. So he more or less directed it. But they did it more like a version of House of the Rising Sun and Whiter Shade of Pale. But I did it with a bit faster version than the one I wanted it to be. Anyway, I wrote it as a humorous blues song. And it went, ages ago, when the universe began, right here on earth lived an angry young man. He shouted to God, can you hear me up there? Because I'm tired of playing with this shaggy old bear. And that's the word, shaggy old bear, he didn't like. And I said, well, look, bears are shaggy, aren't they? Shaggy bears, you know, they call them shaggy bears. But they didn't have it. Now, we would have got away with that nowadays. And that's why they never made Top of the Pops. But there's a lot more lyrics to it. You know. I lived in Longford after I came from Ireland. And I used to manage these young local groups like the Tatters, the Little People, the Templars, we had the Vogue, we had a few groups, different times. To put adverts in the Warrington Guardian and the personal column, just telling people where the group were playing, like if they were playing at the Co-op Hall. And I always signed it, the Longford Lover, because big coming from Longford. And I wrote a song called The Longford Lover, and which I sing at parties. And it just grew and grew. People got to know it, and they used to read the adverts out in the bingo hall. And they asked for my autograph many times. Still do, actually. I'm a crazy man. I get around. Everybody knows I'm a man about town. Now, if you wonder just who I am, I'm the Longford Lover, and I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. Don't give a damn. The Longford Lover just don't give a damn. I met a little girl round Market Gate, chatted her up and I made a date. Took her to a dance at the local hop, then I took her out of sight back a Tombow shop. Tombow shop, Tombow shop, took her out of sight back a Tombow shop. I took a little woman, she was a nurse. Her mama didn't like me and her matron didn't curse. She changed her mind, she changed her style, but the Longford Lover wears a secret smile, secret smile, secret smile. The Longford Lover wears a secret smile. I met a little girl by Busey Bridge. We went for a walk till we came to a hedge. We spent about an hour down Hawley's Lane. I bet she goes back there again, there again, there again. I bet she goes back there again. Now that's for the ladies and Longford lads. They make good mothers and they make good dads. A Latchford lady is never sad when she makes love with the Longford lad, the Longford lad, the Longford lad. She makes love with the Longford lad. Old brood hens and wild young cocks envy me round Latchford locks. For me and my baby are lying by the boats. They scratch around just looking for the oats, looking for the oats, looking for the oats. They scratch around just looking for the oats. I suppose you've heard of the Gaswork Gang. They don't bother me 'cause they know who I am. So don't knock me or you'll discover how many friends has the Longford Lover. You'll discover how many friends has the Longford Lover. 'Cause I'm a crazy man, I get around, and everybody knows I'm a man about town. Now if you wonder just who I am, I'm the Longford Lover and I don't give a damn. Sing it better when I've had a few beers.
I mean, a lot of groups formed maybe for 12 months and then disbanded, but there were groups that, you know, that around and played the venues.
Yeah.
I mean, you could work, 3-4 nights a week in Warrington.
You could,
at different venues.
Yeah.
You know, there was that many groups and that many venues and kids willing to go to these venues, that you could work those. And then very often on a Saturday or Friday, you do a double.
You would, we did a double.
You do an early at the Parr Hall and a late at the Baths Hall.
Yeah, we did, two places.
Versa. Yeah.
But it is well blessed for dance halls and venues for music. I think primarily because of the Yanks. The Americans loved their music, you know, in the late 50s. Well, after the war onwards. And Warrington was it was next door, so we were ideally situated because the Yanks wanted to dance and they wanted dance bands and they wanted the rest. So Warrington was a place to be, and all these dance halls developed because of that.
Now, Warrington had its own outdoor swimming pool at one time, and it was at Woolston, and they had a club there as well called the Lido. And they used to have beat dances there, weekly beat dances there, and the very first Warrington group appeared there, the very first. And the very first Warrington group was a group called Ron Pickard and the Rockets. Still going today.
Well, the original Co-op Hall is where the Co-op is in Sankey Street, at the top. And then they built a new place on Winnick Road, which is now PLP Motors or Locals. Of course, there was the Baths, the Parr Hall, the Bell Hall, and then the Liberal Club in Busey Street, which did have proper dancing, as they said. And then late in the 60s had a spell of being known as the Heaven and Hell Club, and they put groups on there.
I never actually went dancing. I thought it was a sissy thing to do.
The Parr Hall and the Co-op Hall, the Baths Hall, and the Lion and the Carlton Club, the Bell Hall and St Benedict's Youth Club Hall. That was the same place. And there was loads more. Lots of venues in Warrington then, live music.
4 weeks before Jane the Pacemakers appeared at the Bell Hall, the record, How Do You Do What You Do to Me, had just been released. And 3 weeks before they appeared at Bell Hall, they were number 27 in the charts. 2 weeks, they were 14. 1 week before they appeared at the Bell Hall, they were number 7 in the charts. The Friday night they appeared at the Bell Hall, they were number 1 in the charts. I got a phone call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Peter, from the caretaker at the Bell Hall. Peter, can you come round? I said, well, what's up? He says there's about 200 kids here at the school playground. And this was at 3:30. So on my bike, straight down there. And of course they're all school kids. They're all back to school on the Friday afternoon. So that night was absolutely unbelievable. Because, like I say, the place had only held about 400, we crammed 600 in with a rush. But there was over 1,000 people there, 1,000 kids there. Well, of course, we were number 1 in the charts. What do you want? So, luckily, the evening was a warm evening, and what we did, in all fairness, we couldn't cause problems or anything. What we did, we opened all the doors, all the emergency exits. So, during the course of the night, everybody got to hear them. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night.
But the Stones thought I owned the Parr Hall. Brian Jones asked me. I said, no, I don't own it. I'm just helping the promoter. And I had a fancy waistcoat on, which an old lady had made me out of a curtain remnant in Gough Avenue in Warrington. And fancy buttons on it. And Brian Jones wanted to buy it off me, but I wouldn't sell it. And while we were talking about that, I was telling him about how I'd helped other groups and comedians get publicity. And he said, we could do with someone like that in our office. And Mick Jagger, who was listening, said, well, if you're interested, just phone our office. But I never did because I was coaching a Warrington girl and I didn't want to go to London. But it was a tremendous show. Brilliant. And they were all very polite. There was no big headiness about them, and they were all, nothing was too much trouble for them. They were really, really good. I went into the dressing room while the group was playing, and I found 2 groupies going through the Rolling Stones' clothes. And one had a packet of cigarettes in her hand and a lighter, and I snatched them off and put them in my pocket. But after the show, it was that. Everybody was grabbing the clothes and trying to, and I had to pull them into the dressing room by the hair, the Rolling Stones. And in all that panic and chaos, I forgot all about the cigarettes, so I kept them. I smoked them in the end, and I gave the lighter to the woman on with the photograph, Pat Spears, and her husband's on the photograph with me. I became the manager of the Carlton Club, and I was there for a good 5 years or more. Crazy. Well, it used to be really packed. No, more packed than it should have been. And the nicotine used to come off the ceilings on the Fridays, Saturdays. And people, the next day, they'd be going into Bill Medland's office complaining about the stains on the, mainly girls, on the blouses and skirts and things. And he used to say, well, take it to the cleaners and bring me the bill. And that's how we got away with it.
The majority of the lads, they like dressing the American system, the American way, especially the hair with the DA at the back. Don't ask me what DA stands for as well. And the big quiff at the front. The early mod scene started then as well. The very early mod scene started in the late 50s. Again, came over from the jazz club from America. The smart, clean-cut suits with the Ben Sherman shirts. Now, an interesting thing about the Ben Sherman shirts, I don't know if anybody knows or not, but the Ben Sherman shirts were made and manufactured in Warrington here, Revelation Shirts down Busey Road. And they're exported all over the world. Americans love the Ben Sherman shirt. In fact, I'm wearing one now. 3-buttoned jacket, a high jacket up there. Not the tight pants, but smart pants and loafers as well. And a smart tie. The tie, important as well, was had to be thin, narrow tie, knitted, or a leather tie even as well. On the other side as well, if you wanted to knock up on that side, well, there was the Teddy Boy scene. It just broke out and started up. And of course the Teds with the crepes shoes, to a certain extent tight trousers, but not too tight. A long jacket, a longish jacket, and the hair all done up as well.
It was leather, because of the Beatles. The Beatles wore leather. I used to have, well, I've got an old leather jacket on now. Lots of leather jackets for men anyway. But then the flares come, and I was the first man in Warrington to ever wear flares. And how that came about, sometime when I worked in the drapery department in Sankey Street and Cairo Street, I used to help out in the tailoring department. And when it was short staff, and they had a sale on, and I noticed these big jeans, and they were 22, 24-inch bottoms, really wide of sailors, like sailors. And then they'd never sold them, they had them for years, so they were selling them off cheap. So I bought a pair of them, and I went to the dance at the Parr Hall, which I was running and comparing that. And after the show, well, at half time, all the kids was coming up to me, where have you got them from, where you got from? When I went back to work on a Monday, they sold out by the Tuesday. People were going in and buying them all, because they'd seen me wearing these jeans. And I used to wear other flared pants. And that was before they had them in London. But groups used to see me wearing them. And my cloaks, I wore cloaks 18 to 2 years before they became fashion in London. And the Nashville Teens were on. And in the foyer, which we use as a dressing room, part of the foyer, the original foyer, I'd left my deerstalker there, and when after the show, I couldn't find it anywhere. And I watched Top of the Pops on the Thursday night, and the drummer was wearing my deerstalker. So I'd pitched me there, I never saw it again. It's true story, that. They used to go all over the place, on trains and taxis, buses, you know, helping to try and get all these groups bookings. Yeah, I used to walk in and knock on these club doors with my cane and all the bouncers used to look at me as though I wasn't right.
If I wasn't on my motorbike, which I was most of the time, we were just walking around town, I'd probably think I was quite cool wearing a pair of ice blue denim jeans with 6-inch turn-ups. And that wasn't because I had short legs, which I have anyway, but it was the fashion to have 6-inch turn-ups on your jeans. Either black winkle picker type shoes. If you don't know what winkle picker shoes are, they're about pointed shoes which usually look about 3 sizes too big for your feet. Or I would wear black ankle type boots with a square end. I forget what you used to call those, but there was winkle pickers or the plain ankle boots, always in black. It was essential to have black and not brown. For a shirt, I'd either have a blue denim shirt, which is what I've got on now, or there was a craze for what they called cheesecloth shirts, which was a sort of bandage or hessian type material. And my shirt was like a 2-tone purple and blue check. And I don't know why, but I've kept it, and it's hanging in my wardrobe ever since the 60s. I think I'm still hoping that they're going to come back in fashion and I can get a bit more value out of it. The fact that I'm like 3 stone heavier than I was in the 60s now and it won't fit doesn't seem to come into my mind, I suppose.
Now, as far as the girls was concerned, again, you know, well, you've seen all these shots of the girls from the 60s and the late 50s. Well, everybody dressed just like that when they went out. Because, like I say, all the girls were working as well. There was plenty of money seemed to be knocking about. The smart dress, the flared skirts, and the hair was seemed to be beehive, done up, and makeup just come on the market as well. So the girls took advantage of the makeup, the heavy makeup as well. We had mascara.
because there were so many steel and wire works in Warrington, there was always the smell of the smoke and the smell of the iron and the foundries that was in the air all the time. 60s steam trains were still running, and Warrington had 3 stations, Warrington, Arpley, Low Level, Warrington Banky and Central Station. And so there were steam trains running in all directions, so you had the smoke, the smell of the firebox off the steam trains, and the smell of the actual steam itself. There were a couple of tanneries in Warrington, so there was always the pungent smell of animal hide in the background. And also, we had 4 breweries, Greenall's, Cunningham's, Walker's and Burton Wood. So there's a very strong smell of hops and beer in the background all the time. So depending what part of the town you were in, you could catch all or any one of those smells at any one time.
You'd be walking down when the Willispool Causeway and you could smell the hops coming from the grids where they'd been out poured into these grids.
Lots of things were special. Silcox Fair seemed to be popping up all over the place. I'm sure it only came 3 or 4 times a year, but it seemed to be like every couple of weeks Silcox Fair was there. And it was in 1965 when it was at the back of the old Spud Market that me and my friend Brian were on the waltzers, and 2 girls were on the next waltzer, and as the waltzers spun back to each other, we both pinched the girls' hats off their heads, and we went out the next day, and eventually we both got married. And even now, 45 years later, we're still married. We've both got 2 boys each. So it was just a fantastic time, free and easy. You could come and go as you please without any responsibilities.
I remember the 60s, they were good days, better than now.